Welcome back. It is Monday, almost 10 o'clock. I'm sorry that even on the first day, I couldn't do it. I could not make that 9:30 time that I think most people voted for. And the reason was that I have been working on something completely unrelated to YouTube and creating and blogging. And, hopefully in the next couple of days, that's going to be out of my hair. And believe me, I don't want to be doing it much longer because, I'm not getting anything out of it. But it's a project I'm working on with somebody that I need to completely finish and get out of my hair. So while everybody's coming in, and I'm going to bring this up again, probably in another half hour. And I don't know how long I'm going to be screaming. Screaming. I was just watching Rageaholic. What's his name? Razor Fist. So I'm not going to be screaming, but I don't know how long I'm going to be streaming today because I do have to get back to that project and keep working on it. And I'm also working on the 5th installment of Farrakhan Feminism. Those of you that don't care about it are not going to care about it. And I'm sure that there's things that are more important in the world for you. For me, Farrakhan Feminism is I'm still going to be working on those videos. Despite the naysayers, there's people who don't believe in it. But I do want to turn your attention to another poll. Yesterday there was a poll on preferred stream times, and most people wanted 9:30. So a lot of days it might be 9:30. So 9:30 is the recommended time. Most days for me, it's going to be more convenient to do 11:30, which fortunately was the second choice. But this poll for today, and it's the first link in the description, is which alt tech platform are you most willing to give a shot? So we'll see which ones, how about I do this? I'll show you, for example, this is Steemit. Steemit is great for blogging. I like using Steemit. I've very fast warmed to it, partially because you do get this guy, for example. You do get a sort of crypto from it. Yes, it could be that with the passage of time, you're not going to. It might end up being just a bunch of bullshit. But in the meantime, what's the benefit of it? Even if not for that, the benefit of it is that there's a lot of people who are basically, they have an incentive to support each other, to share each other's content, and that's very important when you're a writer or when you're a video creator. If you get onto a platform where basically the only incentive for people to share your stuff is, oh, I like this guy's stuff, well, okay, but if you're on a platform that's basically geared towards creators that support each other, I think that goes a long way. Let's see, Minds.com is also okay. I mean, its blogging is pretty good, and I think now that it's been, when I joined it, it was kind of the beta Minds, so I got used to it that way. So I haven't yet really been able to. Now you can go to there's plenty of crap you can get into on it. So let's see if I can find something that's appropriate to show on YouTube, because it is basically a free-for-all, Minds.com, but it's a free-for-all in every. So here, for example, I think this is a parody group. It's a blog. Oh, okay. I clicked on blog. So this is funny. This is from a different user. Some things about Facebook. I hope stay on Facebook. Too many selfies. Pet obsession pics. I like pets. I wouldn't mind people talking about their pets. I love animals. Animals are great. Human injuries. Overposting of stuff. Yeah, this I think is I could do without. I think he's right about that. Vacation pics. Yeah, I'm not crazy about that. Yeah, Facebook for me, unfortunately, I never got into the whole thing about sharing your entire life. I got back into Facebook because I'm a shit poster. I troll. I do get into arguments, and that's one of the reasons a lot of other people are leaving Facebook, because they were into all that superficial look at me shit and whatever. That was one of the other that was one of the drawbacks of it. Now Gab, for those of you that don't use it yet, let's see here. Gab is kind of bare bones, but you know, again, the lack of censorship, I think, is the benefit. You have here. This is Andrew Torba. He's the CEO of Gab, and it is basically creeping up on Twitter. And you can see here, this is kind of his anti-Semitic screen name, Ari Sheckelstein. But what are you gonna do? you can't. There's no way. There's no way that you can have freedom without getting some backlash. So that guy, fine. I mean, if he wants to do it on Gab, fine. I have no objection to people being assholes about things that they believe in. Let me just check the chat after I look at the other one. Is BitChute, which I'll show it to you here. So BitChute is good, but it's not great. I guess that's I'll explain why. BitChute is good because you can upload stuff to YouTube that's short, and it'll upload immediately to BitChute. It's kind of a great backup network, but it's really hard to grow on it. And also that you have to put the videos on shorter. And this is my channel. This is the main page. It's a little hard to navigate. I think it's more by keyword. So it's not. And if you guys watch the Sticks channel, he has like a lot more of affinity to it, but I like it too. Malevolent Rider. Let me see here. My phone fucked up. Just my stupid opinion. What up, Bold? Pinochet says shalom. Shalom right back at you. My phone fucked up. Anyways, I have a question. How would you stop this? My bro spends $300 a total of 5 times. He remembers her MasterCard number and change her password to the card, and he's 9 in the past. He spent $999, etc. So if we don't get it back, we out $300. I have no clue what you're talking about. If you're talking about a card theft or I'm the worst person to ask about credit card theft, because I don't really use a credit card. I use a debit card for almost everything. Oh, I see what you mean. No, you have to call the credit card company and explain it and cancel the charges. And I think there are ways to do it online nowadays, but that's it, baby. There's nothing else you can do. It's all through them. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So if they're not, if you don't call the credit card company like ASAP, because I think that they do. That's the benefit of having a credit card as opposed to a debit card. You're able to dispute charges. So do it. He did it on Steam for Roblox. Is that not the most internet thing you hear today? No, you have to do it. You have to do it. That's it. No more Malevolent Rider. That's it. I can't spend any more time on this. I appreciate the predicament, but geez. Oh my God. Asking credit card advice from me. I don't really use my credit card. I think I use my credit card once in a while for I think almost everything goes through my debit or through PayPal or something. Yeah, you have to, don't let anybody under the age of my advice is, if you have bank accounts and credit cards, don't let anybody I don't even care if it's your wife. or your husband. Don't let people use your shit. Put his little ass through the court system. Only way he'll ever learn. I mean, that there's a solution. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Malevolent Rider. No more questions about the credit card issue. You have to call the credit card company. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. So other issues. So I want you to vote in that poll. Let me see if any of you did. So we have results. Nobody voted. No, you guys have to. The reason I'm asking this is because one of the problems with YouTube is, we're not always going to be able to realistically, even whether this channel grows or not, this isn't realistically going to be the best place to put content, and I do have to grow other places. So yeah, I've been doing a lot on Steemit, been doing a lot on some of the other blogs I'm on the Hard News Network. For what it's worth, I still write there. Times of Israel, which some of you might not like given the day's events, but those are places I put my content out. Unfortunately, I still have to use Facebook because I have the most contacts there. But eventually, with the platform dying down and with less and it used to be you'd get a lot more news from it. Yeah, the Facebook has been kind of winding down for me, so I post less than I ever did. You would probably see 2 years ago, you would probably see me posting almost exclusively on Facebook. And then I started the YouTube thing, and the Facebook died down a little. It already, one of the reasons I came here was because of the crap that was happening on Facebook with the censorship and with throttling views, throttling shares, all that type of stuff. So yeah, I'm looking to branch out, and that's important. Not everything I do is video form. Some of you might not like to read, but the best way I know how to communicate is usually writing. Pinochet, Gab is cool. It's the only other platform I'm not actively trying to get kicked off of. Yeah, Gab is kind of an acquired taste for me, mostly because honestly there's not a lot of people on there. So you guys might want to join Gab just so people should probably join it and join with other people they know. That's one of the reasons that I'm staying on it, but it's a bit of a disappointment at times. So let's talk about the big issues of the day. The big issues of the day. Now, everybody's still talking about the Michelle Wolf thing. I think I'm going to leave that for a little later because it's, how much can you really talk about it? I don't think we got to Diamond and Silk last time. Diamond and Silk, I saw more footage of their testimony. How do you ground him if he takes nothing serious? Look, I mean, what do you want us to do? Advocate for beating your kid on air? I mean, I can't do that. And I didn't do that. So, send him to a military academy. That straightened a lot of people out. I think back in the old days, before my generation, that was the threat. It was either you're going to be sent to priest school for Catholics, or you're gonna, or what do they call it, a seminary, or you're going to military school, or something like that. That was the best way to do it. Yeah, that's about it, man. You're on your own. I'm not the best I was one of the worst behaved kids in terms of well, I didn't used to beat people up, but I used to leave school, and I had like zero discipline and zero work ethic when I was a kid. And I guess I have to be self-motivated, or else or with the right boss I do well. But I'm not sure what the bold like a leopard parenting advice. Lucid Luna, I've been slowly getting accustomed to Minds. I like how all the content is on one site. You can have videos, blogs, you name it. It seems pretty neat. Haven't tried BitChute yet, but it seems good. The thing is with Minds, I'll try to promote things on it, and for a while I'll get responses, but I just noticed on Steemit you get more responses. It could be that there's a lot of bullshit on Steemit. It could be that you just get subscribers from nowhere. I don't know. I personally have warmed more to Steemit. I have nothing against Minds. I think you have assholes on all these platforms, and anybody hoping for the perfect platform is going to be disappointed. I mean, look at Facebook. So um, we're going to talk about Bibi, and it's not going to be, and nobody's going to be happy. Those of you that are pro-Israel are not going to be happy who are watching, and those of you that are anti-Israel are also going to be not happy, because I just have to tell people, um, look, when you get a source of information who is a party to a conflict, then being skeptical is nothing to be ashamed of. Also, being too doubtful of what they're saying could become a problem, and then you get into the boy who cried wolf issue. Yeah, the Israelis have. I think they were. And this is full disclosure. I am a former Israeli soldier. But there were Israeli officials who were who were supporting the U.S. getting into Iraq prior to 2003. I think I just lost two people. I knew people wouldn't be happy, so I said that at the outset. But I mean, what are you supposed to do? Okay, so we have one vote for Minds and one vote for BitChute. Yeah, BitChute's pretty good. By the way, Steam also has DTube, which I've been having problems with. So just to let you know, creating on DTube has been a problem for me, and I'm not sure what to do about it. So Netanyahu went through this very long presentation. It was a bad PowerPoint, in my opinion. I like to make my PowerPoints kind of not look like they were thrown together in 20 minutes, but I think it was done for basic clarity. They could have done a much better job. It was really, sitting there knowing that this was probably the moment of his, I mean, I guess maybe in his mind, the moment of his career. He had to have been saying, geez, guys, do some fucking graphics. We're not in, the black hole of Calcutta or something. No offense to Arjun if you're watching. That people have to be able to watch something and it looks professional. It looks like it looks like somebody put it together with an eye towards an audience of educated people. And I know I'm being very focused on the aesthetics, but we're going to get to the substance too. Pinochet says Israel should protect their borders any way they are fit, but should stop hurling artillery and rockets at Syria. Well, I think it's a mutual animosity there, and they have had attempts at incursions from Syria and Lebanon. But yeah, the idea that they should get involved in the war over there in Syria is, I think, really lunacy on their part. If there are people advocating for that, yeah, that could become a real problem. Needless to say, and if people really were were honest about it, any more foreign involvement in the Middle East is really going to be a disaster. The Middle East needs less foreign involvement. They need Turkey to withdraw from Syria. They need they do need Israel to absolutely refrain from bombing targets in Syria. They need Saudi Arabia to stop pumping money into Syria. They also need Iran to stop pumping troops into Syria. They need the war. Obviously they need to take care of ISIS. But fighting the Kurds and bombing them isn't ISIS. Also, there was a bit of let's get to that after we talk about the whole thing with Netanyahu's speech, because there's a lot of stuff besides this to get through. So what he did was, and he says, we're going to show you Iran's secret files. You may well know that Iran's leaders repeatedly deny ever pursuing nuclear weapons. So what Netanyahu did, I credit him for a couple things. I don't think that he made the case absolutely compelling But I think that there are a couple of things that he said that were, they were agreeable enough that if you deny them, it just means that you're too skeptical to accept that anything is going on in Iran, and something is going on in Iran. To say that we shouldn't bomb Iran, I think that's a fine position. If you're cautious about it and you're being deliberative about this issue, or you reject it entirely, I think that's a fair position. But to deny certain realities that are taking place, I think is you're just being deceptive, and maybe you're burying your head in the sand. So the first thing he set out to prove was that Iran was lying about a very easy lie to disprove, which is that they claimed that they never attempted to develop a nuclear weapon. Now, if they never attempted to develop a nuclear weapon, then why was there a nuclear accord with Iran in 2015 between them and the U.S. and I think it was 5 other world powers? There wouldn't be any need for it. So the very denial of it kind of is it's almost like playing between two alternate realities. Yes, we agree not to develop nuclear weapons. Oh, by the way, we never intended to build nuclear weapons. So there is a contradiction there. Okay, so you can still say I don't want to bomb Iran. You still, I think you do have to acknowledge that they lied about saying that, oh, we never intended to build a nuclear weapon. And that's the first thing he says. You may well know that Iran's leaders, so I'm reading this from the San Diego Jewish Chronicle, but this is the full text because I can't really feature audio here. It just doesn't work. You may well know that Iran's leaders repeatedly deny ever pursuing nuclear weapons. You can listen to Iran's Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. I stress that the Islamic Republic has never been after nuclear weapons. You can listen to Iran's President Hassan Rouhani. Nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction have no place in Iran's security and defense doctrine and contradict our fundamental religious and ethical convictions. This is repeated by Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. We don't have any program to develop nuclear weapons. Anyway, we consider nuclear weapons both irrational as well as immoral. So he says, Netanyahu says, well, tonight I'm here to tell you one thing. Iran lied big time. After signing the nuclear deal in 2015, Iran intensified its efforts to hide its secret nuclear files. In 2017, Iran moved its nuclear weapons files to a highly secretive location in Tehran. This is the Shorbad district in southern Tehran. This is where they kept the atomic archives right here. Few Iranians knew where it was. Very few, and also a few Israelis. Now, from the outside, this was an innocent-looking compound. It looks like a dilapidated warehouse. But from the inside, it contained Iran's secret atomic archives locked in massive files. Actually, they're a little bigger than this, okay? A few weeks ago, so he had a number of visual aids there. So, I mean, if you haven't watched the whole video, he had a number of visual aids and actual pieces of evidence there, according to him, including a huge wall of compact discs. So apparently a lot of that stuff is still stored on compact disc, maybe because it's a little more secure than putting it on a cloud or a database or whatever. So he showed this big cabinet of files on stage. All of those things, he started going through Project Ahmad, which the explicit goal was creating nuclear weapons. And then he went through the hemispherical core. So he goes through it here, which is it's nice if you want to get into the whole nuts and bolts of it. He says the first element is designing nuclear weapons. This is an original Iranian illustration of a weapon. Again, you don't have to read Farsi to understand this. This is U-235, that's enriched uranium, right here at the core. That's the only place where you find in the core enriched uranium. And here's an Iranian simulation, original Iranian simulation, putting all these components together. That's the first component. Second component, developing nuclear cores. Here's a photo showing the casting process in a cast metal core from the archives. And here's a secret underground facility the Iranians were building to produce nuclear cores. We have hundreds of documents for each of these components. Third component, building nuclear implosion systems. This is an original Iranian photo of a measuring device for implosions, and here's a simulation of a nuclear implosion. Fourth element, preparing nuclear tests. Here's a map of 5 potential locations for nuclear test in eastern Iran. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then he says we have many, many more such documents. And fifth, integrating nuclear weapons on missiles. Here's a design for a nuclear payload on a Shahab-3 missile from the archive. Here's the warhead, here's the bomb, and I don't have to remind you, I think that Iran is continually expanding the range of its ballistic missiles, its nuclear capable missiles. They started with 1,000 kilometers. They're now up to 2,000 roughly. They can reach Riyadh, Tel Aviv, Moscow, but they're working on far, far greater ranges. They're planning much longer range missiles to carry nuclear weapons. So he goes through this, and I can keep reading the transcript, but in order to really get the mood of what's going on there, you would have to watch the video, and maybe I'll just I watched the video on RT because there were a lot of anti-Netanyahu trolls on it. So let me see here. I'll just copy the URL for that. Where was it? RT. I don't know if you guys like RT, but I don't mind it. See here. Nah, this is so whatever. I'll give you the one to, what do you want? Voice of America. Whoops. God. What is going on here? Let's see, today. $20 minutes. I have it from his personal YouTube channel. You guys want that? So it's from his personal YouTube channel, so that's from the source. So let me just read a couple of the comments. Take away every piece of life he enjoys. Oh, you're still talking about Malevolent Rider's brother. Yeah, we're all very concerned about that at the moment. Israel should protect their borders any way they are fit, but should stop hurling. Okay, I already read that too. The Bible even warns about the end times beginning with a war in Damascus. So yeah, not good, exactly. I heard the area of Embassy Row in Jerusalem might be named Trump Town. I laughed until I cried. Yeah, I mean, why not? They've named other. They have King George Street over there. They have the German colony. I used to live in Haifa. It's still called the German colony. They have a German colony in Jerusalem as well. What's another example of like a foreign name over there? They have, geez, they have a Balfour, for example, everywhere. And some of these are very obvious. Hi, Lennon McCarthy. Welcome here. I would like to hear some of your snarky comments. Always welcome. J-Man Truth Seeker says RT is the best. I have no problem with RT. I don't agree with a lot of their opinion people, but for some reason I can't find their stuff very often. But you have to balance everybody else's bullshit, so why not watch it? My favorite report is the Kaiser report. I don't know what that is. If that's on RT, I'll have to check it out. J-Man says, I heard about the literal Trump train in Israel. That's pretty funny by itself, isn't it? I don't know what it is. Thanks, Lennon McCarthy. Anyway, so look, I read some of the transcript. And if you don't believe his story from the transcript, that's fine, because it's also understandable if you watch the presentation that you didn't believe his entire story. Here, let me put it. I forgot to put the link here. So this is to his actual YouTube page. Yes, the Prime Minister over there has a YouTube page and channel. And the fact is that people are now accustomed to doubting what Benjamin Netanyahu says, and understandably, but you have to be able to construct a case also against him. If he tries to make a compelling argument in favor of a certain viewpoint, you can't dismiss it necessarily by saying, "Oh, it comes from Benjamin Netanyahu." And I have some criticism for him, and I have some respect for him, because I think he has made some valid observations. But um, I was watching Tim Black earlier, actually right before I got on this stream, and Tim Black he's a pretty even keeled, progressive YouTuber. I know some of you will be a progressive. How can he be even keeled? Well, I mean, just listen to his show. It's a little more. He's a little more mature than some of the other wackos like Jimmy Dore, who I also watch. But the what I got from Tim Black, first of all, unfortunately, I think he kept calling him Netanyahu or Netanyahu or something. Netanyahu. I think he kept calling him Netanyahu. So even though Tim Black was making a lot of points that we have to be skeptical and we have to properly judge and test as much of the evidence as possible before making any contingency, in that if Netanyahu's intention was to get the U.S. into a war in the Middle East, then he was absolutely against it. So he was making great points, but it was very distracting that he kept getting his name wrong. If you're used to talking about a world leader, and I'm people who are on the left are typically very familiar for whatever reason with the Israel-Palestine conflict, so they shouldn't have a reason to mispronounce Netanyahu's name. But he made a good series of points about how, if the intention of all of this is to drag the United States back into war in the Middle East, then there's definitely reasons to be skeptical of Benjamin Netanyahu. However, for those of us that are not necessarily looking at it along ideological lines, because this is international relations. When Tim and HA broke up, I stopped following Tim so much. Mild Trump derangement, but worse than Jimmy Dore. Well, yeah. Yeah, he's not going to come around the way HA did. Yeah, Pinochet says, after researching the true beginnings of the name progressive, I see red literally every time I hear it. Yeah, that's not how unbecoming of you, Augusto Pinochet. That's very unexpected that you would make a statement like that. Anyway, so getting back to the topic at hand, the real problem with this, again, is the boy who cried wolf effect. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's not going to be, he's been using this Iran issue as basically his cause since he was reelected in 2009. Those of you that don't know his history, I'll go through some of his personal history. He was born, I think, in 1949, and he served in the most elite unit of the Israeli army, along with his older brother, who was killed in the Entebbe raid. And he was pretty much among the social elite of the Israelis for his entire life, because his dad was a Cornell University professor. I think he died maybe a couple years ago. And they were always hardline, from the hard line of Zionism. They didn't believe in negotiation with the Palestinians anyway. They didn't believe in trading land for peace, for example. And they believed that there should be, what they call the full land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael Shlema, which traditionally in Jewish religion, yes, there's a concept of the biblical land of Israel, which is larger than the current state of Israel. But people conflate that with saying, "Oh, he's trying to expand its borders." Well, he didn't expand its borders. It was actually people before him. Um, in 1967, they won the 67 war. I believe he was, I don't think he was in the army yet. So they conquered a bunch of territories, the Golan Heights from Syria, and then the West Bank, Gaza, and the Sinai. West Bank was from Jordan, Gaza and the Sinai were from Egypt. So Benjamin Netanyahu serves in the army. He takes part in a number of key missions as part of the elite unit, the Sayeret Makal, which is the most elite unit of the Israeli armed forces. And then, unlike his brother, who he died in 1976, he didn't pursue a long-term military career. He went into he got his I think he got his MBA from MIT sometime in the 70s, and then he ended up after a couple of corporate jobs becoming the Israeli ambassador to the UN. And since then, he worked his way through the parliament, became the leader of the opposition, I think, in 1993. And he was kind of an unknown person, except by his last name. Everybody knew him because of his brother. His brother had died in one of the most well-known commando operations in the history of the military. Netanyahu's brother was probably the subject of several movies over there, and even I think there was a kind of a B movie version that was produced here in the U.S. or in Italy or some shit like that. Um, Countries do expand and contract throughout history, not just Israel. Well, the issue is here that people they look at it as a very important part of the story, the whole idea of greater Israel. They say there's a conspiracy to expand its borders. I think that if you look at the events that have happened, it's not happening. I'm sorry. Okay, so go ahead and if people want to argue about it, they're fine coming to my channel. I'm not saying you, Lennon McCarthy. I'm just saying that there are people who make a huge deal out of that, and they really have to look at the facts that have happened since 1993, especially. That's not what's been going on. Anyway, so Netanyahu, he becomes head of the opposition in 1993. Then in 1996, after his enemy, his arch rival, the Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, gets murdered in a assassination by a right wing fanatic. Netanyahu beats his successor Shimon Peres in an election, and he rules for about 3 years, which weren't very successful. And then he was defeated, and then the second Intifada broke out, which was the one that I served during. I served during the tail end of it. That was kind of they call it a civil uprising, but it was more of a guerrilla attacks and suicide attacks on Israeli civilian and military targets. So that happened after he about a year and a half after he got his first term ended, and then in 2009 he'd already had a few stints, in cabinet positions, because in Israel you can be the prime minister and then you can lose, and then you can come back and serve in like the cabinet, because you can still be elected to the parliament. So he was elected to parliament again, or something, and he was appointed finance minister. Then he was appointed foreign. I think he was a very successful finance minister because he cut back on socialism there. He privatized a lot of companies, and he did away with a lot of the welfare benefits, and I think he lowered some of the corporate taxes. So after some painful changes, he was a very successful finance minister. But then, he becomes foreign minister. Then he eventually wins back the prime ministry. And then what the hell are you guys talking about? Sean Lankus, hey bold chat. Oh, okay. What's going on, Sean? So look, the issue with Netanyahu is that since 2009, he got reelected in 2009 to his second term after he'd been defeated his first term. By then, the issue of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon had become a major, I guess you could call it a meme in Israeli senior circles. But those of you that are saying, "Oh, it's only because Israel is claiming that they have a nuclear weapon that anybody's hearing about it," well, the unfortunate fact is that if you look at a lot of the data from the past 20 years about nuclear proliferation, it's not only Iran, but it does include Iran. I talk a lot, and I know some of you might think it's a stupid topic to bring up, but the Year of the Rat, which is an amazing book, you should all pick it up. It's pretty cheap, in fact, because nobody read it. It does discuss how Clinton allowed ballistic missile technology to be sold to China, and he basically took bribes from the Chinese government almost directly. He took them to his campaign, like campaign donations, literally from the Chinese government in 1996. And this was documented by the Washington Post openly in 1998. Okay, there's no conspiracy here. It's known. This isn't Ramon, howling at the wind, and this isn't me bringing some book that there are real pages in the book. Okay, this isn't some sort of fake book like this one. There's this book. I think you guys might have heard of this from the Daily Wire. Reasons to vote for Democrats, and then it's just. So no, this book does have actual content on the pages. No, there's no Ian Ramon, but I like the band The Ramones, so I don't care if you use Ramon. Either way, it's fine. Anyway, so look. So Benjamin Netanyahu's case has been throughout his recent term, or starting in 2009, because he's been reelected since then I think 2 times. So his whole thing has been about, I am the person who will guide us through this era of fighting with. Is that a threat, Pinochet with the glasses? So his whole premise is, I'm the person who's competent to deal with the Iranian nuclear threat. And it's been a very successful tactic in his elections internally. But at this point today, I find it hard to believe personally that the reason that he's pushing this agenda is because he's trying to get reelected or trying to maintain his hold on the prime minister's office. Look, the fact of the matter is this. In the 90s, the Chinese did share ballistic missile technology with Pakistan. Pakistan then shared it with Iran. Okay? I can bring up. So this is from the Diplomat. They talk a lot about, because Iran and Pakistan have had kind of tensions, but once in a while they'll be on the same side. 1 second. I'll find this. I know you guys are really riveted to the screen anyway. So this is page 184. 1 second. Okay, keeping Mike Armstrong, Bernard Schwartz, and the other aerospace CEOs happy has made the world a much more dangerous place. This is in reference to a bunch of defense contractors that gave campaign contributions to the Clintons so they could export arms to China. Certainly, the total collapse of any effort to stem PLA missile proliferation, that's the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army, complicates the life of Israeli defense planners and makes development of the Arrow, Israel's anti-missile defense system, even more vital. If NATO intelligence is right that Iran will have a 2,000-mile missile courtesy of the Chinese space launchers, even Rome or Moscow would be in range. And of course, a turnkey missile plant in Pakistan does nothing to make South Asia a more stable and secure area. So this was in 184. Based on this was research that they were doing on behalf of the Senate. I think it was the Armed Services Committee. Let me see here, page 190. I was looking at the wrong page. Okay, so they're talking about while U.S. officials were confirming to Gertz that Costco, which was one of the shell companies China was using to buy weapons and steal weaponized technologies from the U.S., so that Costco was shipping weapons equipment to Pakistan, President Clinton was praising China for bringing stability to Southern Asia. China's role in arming Pakistan may sit particularly poorly with the Israelis, who are not amused when an Islamic State bolsters its military capability. So you could argue either way. You could say, "Oh, shut up, you Israelis. I mean, we can do business with whoever we want." But the fact is, I think opposing Israel, if you want to do that, fine. It doesn't mean you have to support Pakistan, which is also a country that has, they have numerous ties to terror. I mean, hypothetically, those of you that are out there that are skeptics of the Israelis, why aren't you also skeptical of Pakistan? Pakistan has had a brutal history of human rights abuses and connections to Islamic terrorism. So hold on. So we haven't even gone to this. So third example, in 1996, a Costco ship called the Empress Phoenix was caught carrying 2,000 automatic weapons into the port of Oakland, California. The cargo was seized by U.S. Customs agents. The Empress Phoenix was manned on that voyage by Wang Jun's arms part dealership, Poly Technologies. The cargo was destined for Los Angeles gang members. Fourth example, Costco is delivering nuclear weapon components to Iran also. Though Iran is less advanced than Pakistan along the road to nuclear capability, its intentions toward the United States and Israel are a great deal more sinister. So this was in 1998 they released this. Let me see where that source came from. 1 second. Table of contents. 13. They better not make me work for this. So this was from a congressional inquiry from the National Security Subcommittee by Duncan Hunter, who's still a congressman from California. So that's the National Security Subcommittee of the House of Representatives. So, okay, there is proof that China delivered nuclear components and that were designed for ballistic missiles to Iran as far back as 1998. So look, there's a lot of people who are skeptical of the idea that we should be involved in a war with Iran. I'm also I don't believe we should be involved in, we being the United States. For those of you that are, dual loyalties, who the fuck are you talking about? Okay, so I'm going to spell it out. I don't believe the United States should be involved in a war with Iran at this point when we are in this crazy, crazy debt crisis. And obviously, we're going through some sort of monetary manipulation by China and Russia. If anybody wants to ask, what's the rule of thumb by me? Who's the biggest threat to U.S. national security? It happens to be China. No offense to the Chinese, but they are. And President Trump constantly talks about China because it's obvious. If you really look at what's going on in the world, okay, you can talk about Islamic terrorism, you can talk about communism and you know, postmodernism and all that. Fine, those things are all shitty too. The real strategic threat to the United States in terms of you know, the world economy and currencies and all of that, and also you know, bioweapons, militarily, everything. The biggest superpower in the world, the one that is at the moment threatening us the most, is China. You know, one day maybe it won't be China. Maybe one day it'll be India. Who knows? You know, it could be. Hopefully, we'll live in a world in the future where you know there won't be as many wars. But at the moment, you have to acknowledge that Iran does pose a threat. It is a nuclear threat. They have obfuscated about their intention to create a nuclear weapon and lied about it. They've also violated the nuclear deal on several occasions because part of the nuclear deal includes not testing ballistic missiles. Okay, ballistic missiles don't necessarily have to be nuclear. I mean, let's see. We got this is from February 3rd, 2017 from NPR. Okay, I don't like NPR at all, but I'm using it in order to illustrate that these things have been happening. Why are they testing ballistic missiles if they signed an agreement that they're not developing nuclear weapons? What do you even use ballistic missiles for? There's only a certain amount of different devices that you use ballistic missiles for. And right or wrong, whether you think Iran deserves nuclear missiles or not, they did sign a deal where they said they're not going to develop them. So they are in violation of a treaty, which I'm going to get to in a few seconds. But here it says, in the days leading up to today's announcement of additional U.S. sanctions on Iran, the U.S. and Iran have made claims and counterclaims as to whether Iran's ballistic missile test on Sunday violated a UN Security Council resolution on the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and 6 world powers, including the U.S. So did Iran violate the agreement or not? Most non-proliferation experts would say Iran certainly defied the spirit of the UN resolution, but technically didn't violate it, because it contains no prohibition against such testing as one of its predecessors passed in 2010 specifically did. Here's what the 2 resolutions say on the subject with highlighting added. So this is resolution 1929 from 2010, says the Security Council decides that Iran shall not undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons, including launches using ballistic missile technology, and that states shall take all necessary measures to prevent the transfer of technology or technical assistance to Iran related to such activities. In Resolution 2231, passed in 2015, the Security Council endorsed the nuclear deal known formally as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or GAB.AI. It terminated the provisions of the 2010 resolution and added language deep in one of the annexes saying, Iran is called upon not to undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons, including launches using such ballistic missile technology until the date 8 years after the GAB.AI adoption day, or until the date on which the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, submits a report confirming the broader conclusion, whichever is earlier. As diplomatic terms of art, shall not, which appeared in the 2010 resolution, represents a clear and enforceable prohibition, whereas being called upon not to do something is more ambiguous. Here's one way to look at it. When Iran tested ballistic missiles in the fall of 2015, while Resolution 1929 was still in effect, it was doubtless in violation of a Security Council stricture. But when it tested its missile on Sunday under the new Resolution 2231, Iran was essentially ignoring the Security Council's advice, not violating a directive. So here's how to explain it, okay? Damn it, Lennon, you started this shit, and now you're producing. What are you guys doing? Len McCarthy says, I assumed we meant Israel. So sorry, I had to clarify that. I knew somebody would say that. J-Man Truth Seeker, what did he say? Che was sent to South Africa and Africa by Castro because Fidel was scared to death of his deranged evil. I heard they just didn't get along. It was like kind of a Yoko thing. Why aren't you producing the comedy I want you to produce? All right, you guys got to settle down there. I don't know what you're doing. We got troll versus troll in the chat right now. So look, from what I just read from NPR, it's a very easy. It isn't very easy, unfortunately. The problem is that what this shows is that the nuclear agreement itself, by NPR's own admission, is non-binding, and Iran can actually violate it without any consequences. Because if you're able to, if oh my God, you guys are, I got to put the chat off. I can't bear to see this strife in among the bold, like a leopard chat community between Lenin McCarthy and Augusto Pinochet. Two or three of the biggest figures of the Cold War era. I can't bear it. Anyway, so before you guys distract me even more, the issue here is a number of things. First of all, has Iran intended to acquire a nuclear missile? That's one of the things Bibi Netanyahu was trying to get across. And I think if you're really being honest, if you're not trying to put your head in the sand, you would have to agree with that one point of his, that they have been trying to get a nuclear missile in the past, or at least before the 2015 nuclear agreement. The second issue is whether the agreement was actually effective in curtailing their activities. And that is something that I don't know if he really touched on that during the discussion, because really what he was using was evidence that is not available to the international press. It was stuff that he claimed, or he kind of was he was alluding to, that had been stolen from Iran by spies or something. So without actual independent verification, and that's where I think he might end up having to turn over some of this evidence to journalists, or having people come in and read it. But the fact of the matter is this: that what the issue of whether the treaty was effective in curtailing their nuclear weapons development, I think, is illustrated by what NPR admitted, which is that they're not bound not to perform nuclear tests, or ballistic missile tests, I should say. So ballistic missile could be non-nuclear. So technically, they're advised not to, so they can continue to develop nuclear missiles, or ballistic missiles. And then there's kind of this peekaboo game going on about the actual nuclear elements, the development of the warheads, the development of the nuclear cores, the centrifuges, all those facilities for enriching uranium that have the centrifuges. So that's an issue where you start to get into the world of shadows, which was more of what he was talking about today. And that's where the real skepticism comes in. Because how can you believe somebody who stole information from somebody else and claims that they did the dirty deed? It obviously, people have a right to be skeptical about that. But I was watching Sticks, Hex, and Hammer on Twitter earlier, and I'm anticipating that he's going to have like a long video about it tomorrow. and Sticks Hexenhammer is not a huge supporter of the Israelis, but he's a very intelligent critic of theirs. And you know, there's I think he's rare among that community of critics and I don't know if you call him an anti-Zionist, but he is a major critic of theirs, and he was trying to make the case that this is Netanyahu's way of ramping up for a new war with Iran using bogus intelligence. But the fact is, okay, so you can make that case, and you know, I'll concede to you that I don't want war with Iran in the Middle East, and I want to work towards preventing that from happening. But one of the things that Sticks Hexenhammer has stated several times when I see him discussing Iran is that no, they're not developing nuclear weapons. It's preposterous, and this is all a neocon lie, and they're trying to get us into another war there or whatever. Look, whatever you want to say about the neocons and whatever you want to say about everybody else, the idea that Iran is not a nuclear capable, trying to become nuclear capable, is contradicted by the circumstances. Okay, so maybe what you should say is, I don't care if they become nuclear capable. I think that them becoming nuclear capable would not be a threat. But to deny that they've been trying to become nuclear capable, I think it shows a certain degree of denial of reality. They had a nuclear program that they agreed to dismantle. That in and of itself could that could be construed as an admission that they were trying to develop a nuclear weapon. Now, they never came out and explicitly said, "Oh, our nuclear program was in order to develop a nuclear weapon." They always maintained this fiction that that was for civilian purposes, nuclear energy or whatever. Well, if they're developing all that for nuclear energy, how come they're also in parallel developing ballistic missile programs that are capable of delivering nuclear warheads? Okay, that's I mean, either you need those missiles in order to deliver nuclear warheads, or you're building them in order to reach the moon or something. It could be for hypothetically. I mean, in some cases, you can use similar missiles for a space program. Okay, and that would be an interesting undertaking for Iran. But they actually paint on their missiles often, death to Israel or death to America. They paint on the actual missile housings. Let's see if we can get. Let's see. This isn't a good photo, but let's see here. Uh, so they do parade them through the streets like they used to do in Moscow. So you'll see them. Here's one nice pointy missile. As you ever seen The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen? So this is from Global Military Review. Okay, now for those of you that are saying, "Oh, you're such a bullshitter. What are you showing us photos on screen?" I'm just giving you my opinion, man. You don't have to believe everything that I say. You can go watch Stix's video tomorrow, and you don't have to say 100% I agree with Ramon, but you should also ask, if some of these are not ballistic missiles. Obviously, this is more of an artillery one. This would be more of what I'm talking about. That's a defense missile system. Let me see here. I'll have to find their. Yeah, soon you guys are going to be like, "Oh, he's just showing any missile that there is," So this is from Al Arabiya, which is not exactly sympathetic to Iran because I think it's from Dubai. And it is from, well, 2014. So let's see how far this one was claimed to be able to reach. About 2,000 kilometers was the previous one, the Shahab missile. Okay, so there is. Look, I'm not telling you to believe lock, stock, and barrel everything that Benjamin Netanyahu says. Okay, but the real issue is, um, you guys are still fighting over whatever. Joy Reid had my phone a minute ago. Uh, so look, tomorrow I want you to watch Sticks Hexenhammer's video, and I want you to be both skeptical of Netanyahu, but also his critics. They have this tendency to doubt literally everything he says. And what the interest of my channel isn't necessarily to put you, my viewers, in a certain camp. It's not even to put you in my camp. It's to put you in the mindset that look, we're going to have to dig through a lot of messages coming from different directions, and the purpose of digging through those messages is to come to a conclusion where we find a solution that's based on the truth. It's not based on some sort of hysterical lie that's been spread. Fox News, they might take Netanyahu's speech and they might say, "Glory be to God, we now have a sign. We got to go to war with Iran or something." Well, I'm not going to buy it lock, stock, and barrel. I have to be skeptical too. Somebody actually shared Netanyahu's speech earlier with me, sent it to me in a message, and they said, "Please share immediately this breaking news, the speech by Netanyahu." And I said, "Look, I'm not going to share something I haven't even read or listened to or watched. It's especially something like this." Sometimes I do share things I don't read or listen to, but in this case, I think it's important enough. In this case, it is important enough that you don't buy into the hysteria. You don't buy into the hysteria, and you don't buy into the backlash. And you start to say to yourself, look, maybe the best solution is this. And this is my conclusion. You can take it or leave it. But the idea here is that we can still cancel the nuclear deal with Iran without going to war with Iran. The concept behind it is that the signing of a nuclear deal with Iran legally removed a number of punitive sanctions. Exactly, Lennon McCarthy. That's the text of what they would say. And come on. I mean, let's be a little more intelligent here. So we would cancel the nuclear agreement with Iran and reimpose sanctions, and we would start to say to Iran, look, if you really want to talk Turkey, if you want to solve the issues in the Middle East, you want to end the war in Syria, I'm here. I'm Mike Pompeo, let's say. Pompeo already has a little bit of he has a little bit of a boost from Korea. A lot of people still don't trust him because he was in the CIA and did not pardon Julian Assange. So his next role could be this. He could say, look, I am fine negotiating with you guys. Yeah, hold on a second. I'm fine negotiating with you guys, but the issue is that we can't be taken for fools. We will talk about comprehensive disengagement in the Middle East, talk about ending foreign involvement in Syria, negotiating with Assad in order to end American, Turkish, Iranian, Israeli, all that involvement in Syria. We will give him a package of good developments that are there to help him reclaim some of the sovereignty that he kind of lost, and have him deal with his own problems with the rebels. If the rebels overthrow him, I don't think we should prop him up either. There's all these people talking about we should prop up Assad. What the hell are you talking about? We should let him die if that happens. But The idea is that we can use this as leverage by canceling this nuclear deal to arrive at a deeper degree of resolution in the Middle East. We could have disengagement from Syria. We could also possibly have a resolution of the situation in Yemen. If we can bring Saudi Arabia and Iran to the negotiating table over Syria, that would, or over Yemen and Syria, and the nuclear agreement, and kind of bring them back into the world of brokering diplomacy that way. That would be an accomplishment. Can he do it? I don't know. I think it's a bit of a different dynamic between Iran and North Korea. North Korea obviously is not really a religious issue. It's more it's a personal dictatorship. Iran does have an underlying theocratic philosophy, and that's why I don't know if this will work. But going to war with Iran, I think I would agree with Sticks, Hex, and Hammer on that. And, I think a lot of other people, whether they're on the left or the right, would agree that it's not time to engage in another war in the Middle East, whatever the excuse is. Len McCarthy says, praise Jesus. Bibi says we got to go to war with Iran. Yeah. Look, I think it's possible that what Netanyahu is aiming for is not a war. But I do totally understand the people, both on the left and the right, who believe that he would want it. And, if that's what he's aiming for, then, you do have to put the stops on and say, come on. That's not the way to solve the issues in the Middle East. Not going to more wars, not getting more American troops involved. We need really a solution that leads to the least amount of bloodshed, the least amount of waste, and by the way, wasting money, which is also important. But killing people, ruining countries, destroying civilizations. That after all, I mean, the whole ISIS thing is it's a result of our involvement in Iraq. If we had not been involved in Iraq, probably wouldn't have happened. What? It's Iran. I ran so far away. Not too bad for a guy from Ohio. So that wasn't the only topic we're going to talk about today. But if I hadn't talked about the topic, people would have asked why. So yeah, I did address it, and I do agree that we shouldn't go to war. But I don't agree with some of the perception of Netanyahu, and I did criticize him, and I'll continue to criticize him because I mean he's a big boy. I mean he's almost what he's not 80 years old, but he would be he's almost 70 years old, I think. The fact is that pie pan. All right, we're gonna leave the Iran topic, so forget it, Lennon. I'm not going back to that sentence. Anyway, there were other topics I wanted to talk about today. Diamond and Silk. Forgot to talk about them last week. When I think it did happen, it was either last week or over the weekend when they went to testify before Congress. First of all, there was the testimony. What was to be expected was this absolutely bizarre, but disgraceful treatment by the Congressional Black Caucus, and their intention by scrutinizing Diamond and Silk, which is not as big of an issue as the Iran nuclear deal, but it does show a real problem. Is that Diamond and Silk actually said this up front to Hank Johnson, who was the congressman from Georgia that most people saw in the clips. She said, or I think it was Diamond, that was Michelle Holloway, I think her name is. She said this: look, if Facebook was run by conservatives and we were liberals, you would be marching through the streets. And it's true. And what was the reaction? I don't know if I mentioned it in one of my previous streams, but the problem is that she got it. She nailed it completely on the head. But the problem is that the Congressman Hank Johnson from Georgia, he steered the conversation to be one about, oh, you make a lot of money from Facebook, right? You make a lot of money. Oh, this is what you're here about. It's because Facebook cut off your money, and you want us in Congress to resolve that for you. Well, the truth of the matter is that they had been grilling Mark Zuckerberg for hours the week before that about all sorts of things that had nothing to do with anything, including, for example, Cory Booker, I think, in the Senate hearing, was grilling him about diversity at the top. If you want to make this a grandstanding tour where you're complaining about diversity at the top, and you think that you're not wasting time with Facebook, then you don't deserve to be a senator from New Jersey. And that's exactly what Cory Booker has been like since he became a senator. It's been all about the window dressing, about diversity, about there was the latest thing was he was raking Mike Pompeo over the coals for him not being too keen on gays in the CIA or something. So my stomach just grumbled. So yeah, Lynn McCarthy says it. So it's okay to censor people if Trump reimburses them. So the main point was that they kept coming back to the money issues. There was I forget who was the second person, but Hank Johnson came to that. By the way, Hank Johnson's other claim to fame was asking an admiral in the Navy, I think, or it might have been like an Army general who wanted to build a new military base on Guam. He asked him if the weight of the base could cause the island to capsize. So that's his other claim to fame. I think he's universally known as one of the dumbest people ever to serve in Congress. But because he lives in a district that is, it's gerrymandered in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, so that I think like 95% of his district is black. He's almost unbeatable, and that's why for them it's imperative. It's they have this death wish now. They need to shut up Diamond and Silk. They need to shut up Kanye West or Candace Owens, and it's really I find it like tragic that we live in this sort of time when you have people who are supposedly representatives of let's say a community, if you can call it a community. I'd like to think of the idea of the black community being, it's a community when they want it to be. There was a whole thing earlier, a bunch of one of the Crips, I think his name was Daz Dillinger. This rapper Daz Dillinger put out a hit on Kanye West. He said, "Oh, this is a Crip thing. Where if you see Kanye West, go after him." And he explicitly said it on Facebook. On video. So he's issuing a threat to Kanye West on Facebook. This is a terroristic threat. From some, I mean, why aren't people calling that, political violence? Okay, and what does that even mean? I thought that liberals were supposed to be anti-gun, anti-violence. Putting out a hit on him, what are they asking the Crips to like run behind him with a guitar string and strangle him? Or garrot him? That's technically not strangling. But it's really it's bizarre, and if there's a reason that it's hard to find real common ground with people. Well, this is the type of limitations that people's thinking is undergoing when you have Diamond and Silk going before Congress, and you have them. They went. There's another video. Mason Cleaver, who's a former Black Panther who converted to Christianity and became much more of a conservative person, traditional Christian conservative. He put out a video where he actually analyzed Sheila Jackson Lee's questioning of Diamond and Silk, And that was also kind of breathtaking because she asked them 3 times in a row whether she accepted payment from the Trump campaign. They answered no every time. They also said no, we did not accept payment, because other people had already asked that, and it was a reimbursement. So if members of Congress had asked them on several occasions whether they got paid, and they said no, that was a reimbursement, and then she got into a whole tiff with them over whether Facebook had actually notified them of their page being banned, and they said, well, no. She said, well, what about this on this date? And she said, well, we issued their statement about it had happened the day before they got the communication. So when they made the statement, which was April 11th, it was truthful. Or it was April 12th they made the statement. They got the communication on April 13th. So you can't lie about something that hasn't happened yet. It's like if I was to say, if you were to say, I'm not a father, but 2 days later your child is born, you're still not a liar. You're a father to be. It's a very logical statement that until your child is born, you're not a father yet. So she was. I mean, that was a hearing that you had to watch it, and then because she had asked the same question 3 times, whether they were paid, she also ran out of time, and the chairman of the committee threw down the gavel and said, the time's expired, and she wouldn't shut up. Watch that clip. It's from Mason Cleaver. Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will tip over and capsize. J-Man Truth Seeker, are you by any chance from Atlanta? I just wanted to ask out of curiosity. You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable with it. Just going to check some things here. Apparently, somebody is 5 hours ahead of me, and they're saying, oh, you stream late for me. Well, I mean, what am I going to do, man? So yeah. Message retracted. So let me see if any of you have not voted yet. The poll is still up. What's your favorite alternative platform? It's the first link in the description. Okay. Currently, you have a 1-to-1 tie between Minds and BitChute. I'd probably say I do like BitChute more because it's a little more simple, but that's just me. So, please vote. Vote. If you don't vote, well, I guess you'll just have to watch me here and share this stream. Too many people go to California. North America could capsize. That's why we need so many people in New York. Yeah, because it balances out. What's another topic? Okay, another very important topic. We're going to get to Nicaragua, after this, because I have been talking a little about Nicaragua, but the developments aren't exactly clear yet. But what I wanted to discuss first was this poll that's making the rounds, and a lot of people are talking about that Democrats are losing ground among the millennials, and I have both. I see some evidence of this, and I have a little skepticism of it as well, which is it might get repetitive, but that's the way I take a lot of the news. You have to process it. You have to see which part of it you agree with, which part of it you kind of need a little more information to really fully buy into. So it says enthusiasm for the Democrat. This from Reuters, which Reuters is not as biased of a news source as other ones. It's generally thought to be more of a news reporting site and wire service. So enthusiasm for the Democratic Party is waning among millennials as its candidates head into the crucial midterm congressional elections, according to the Reuters Ipsos National Opinion Poll. The online survey of more than 16,000 registered voters ages 18 to 34, I almost said faux because, we were talking about Atlanta, shows their support for Democrats over Republicans for Congress slipped by about 9 percentage points over the past 2 years to 46% overall. So that's a bit of a significant shift, 9% within 2 years among the same age group. And they increasingly say the Republican Party is a better steward of the economy. Although nearly 2 of 3 young voters polled said they do not like Republican President Donald Trump, their distaste for them does not necessarily extend to all Republicans or translate directly into votes for Democratic congressional candidates. So just to step back for a second, let's say somebody does not like Donald Trump. I actually worked with a guy in my previous job who was you could call him probably a staunch conservative in many ways, in terms of his just the way he carried himself, and he was a Catholic, and his opinions, and the way he related to talking in the workplace. Not entirely. Sometimes he would say something a bit. He wasn't somebody who wouldn't use profanity, but he hated Donald Trump, and he thought Donald Trump was a joke. And he'd talk about the P tape and whatever. And we would have unfortunately, it created like a lot of disagreement between us. But he did say that he respected my opinion. He was very adamant that there's nothing that could convince him that Donald Trump wasn't a scumbag. And a lot of it was due to the tweeting thing, and he thought that was unbecoming of the president and whatever. It was a lot of the more superficial issues. But that did not mean that this guy was going to vote for the Democrats. And he was a pro Second Amendment person at the time. He was also, I would say that he would not be somebody who would typically vote Democrat. So there is a portion of the electorate that is, in their mindset, in their personal philosophy, they would be considered conservative, but they hate Donald Trump. And they're not neoconservative. Don't misconstrue that. They're simply voters, or they're people who are disaffected voters. They just don't like him on a personal level, and in fact, they don't. A lot of the evidence of anything he accomplishes, they really view with more skepticism than necessary. Okay. With this Korea thing, I don't work with the guy anymore, but I'd assume that he probably is saying, well, he got some sort of help from, whoever it was, Putin or something. See if anybody's reacting. Is Vimeo on the list? No, sorry, I don't have Vimeo yet, but I mean, if you guys think it's good, I could try using Vimeo. A lot of people are on Steam. I've apparently locked that 25 reputation, a fraction of a penny of Camel Cash. But Lam McCarthy, you have to start getting on with this group that I've been with. Let's I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll show you what to do on Steemit, because Steemit is a lot about networking and knowing the right people to tag and tagging your posts for things that you think are. Steemit can be you can grow very fast if you do it the right way. With other platforms like Minds, I don't know how to help my channel develop more on Minds. Maybe I just haven't been focusing on it enough. So let's see where it is now. So you have 3 votes for BitChute, 2 votes for Gab, 2 votes for Steemit, 1 vote for other. I'm assuming that's the Vimeo. I also, by the way, you're allowed to vote for 2 different ones. So yeah, I'd say at the moment BitChute is out in front, but that of course is for video. Like I said, I like Steemit. I like using Steemit for blogging. I like using Steemit for writing. It's very I would say versatile in that respect. So if you haven't followed me yet, all of my information on all of those platforms is in the description. So whenever you want, just take a moment, go over to, for example, my Steemit account would probably be the one where I have the most content, and take a look. And if you like what you see, subscribe and upvote literally every post I have, because that's the objective of Steemit. Get more camel cash, as Lennon McCarthy would say. Pinochet says, I've heard some scam talk about Steemit, but can't be 100% sure. I've heard about it too, which is why I'm not pouring money into it. I'm just using it in order to network more. And it's useful to network with other crypto people. So even if you're not dealing with the whole bullshit about the Steam It Cash or I think it's just called Steam Cash or something, you can also network with people who are on other um, crypto schemes or whatever. I don't know if schemes is the right word. It kind of gives it a negative connotation, but I would say give it a chance in terms of, just if you're a blogging person, if you're something like that, it is good. If you don't like, plus it's blockchain and anti-censorship. What's wrong with anti-censorship? Um, but back to the topic at hand. So they're talking about millennials. So let's go back to this article. That presents a potential problem for Democrats who have come to count on millennials as a core constituency and will need all the loyalty that they can get to achieve a net gain of 23 seats to capture control of the U.S. House of Representatives in November. Young voters represent an opportunity and a risk for both parties, said Donald Green, a political science professor at Columbia University in New York City. They're not as wedded to one party, Green said. They're easier to convince than, say, your 50 or 60-year-olds who don't really change their minds very often. Terry Hood, who's 34, an African American who works at a Dollar General store in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and took this year's poll, said he voted for Democrat Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election, but he will consider a Republican for Congress because he believes the party is making it easier to find jobs, and he applauds the recent Republican-led tax cut. It sounds strange to me to say this about the Republicans, but they're helping with even the small things, Hood said in a phone interview. They're taking less taxes out of my paycheck. I noticed that. So I guess this was done by phone, which is, a lot of people don't do polls that way anymore. They've used all sorts of bullshit. I actually screw with a couple of polls once in a while that I get in the mail from people who are in the email, by the way, not snail mail, that are from groups that I don't agree with, and I'll just, I'll put basically, what do you think we should do about this, and I'll say, go fuck yourselves or something. But doing it on the phone is, kind of an interesting way to do it nowadays because it's generally done online or it's done through surveys or something like that. Well, on the phone, I think people express themselves a little differently. Only 28% of those polled expressed overt support for Republicans in the 2018 poll, about the same percentage as 2 years earlier. But that does not mean the rest will turn out to back Democrats, the survey showed. A growing share of voters between ages 18 and 34 and 34 years old said they were undecided and would support a third-party candidate or not vote at all. The shift away from Democrats was more pronounced among white millennials, who accounted for 2/3 of all votes cast in the age group in 2016. So then you have this whole, and they have a credibility interval. So you see here that 18 to 34 white people, they've lost a lot of people, the Democrats, since 2016. They've lost. They used to have about, well, it says 55% in 2016, and then 46% today. So that's not good among white millennials, I guess. Or no, this is among all millennials. So they've lost, like they said earlier, 9%. Now among white millennials, which you're talking about a lot of other districts that are supposedly competitive, but originally they had 47% in 2018 among white millennials. Now they have 39%. The Republicans have pulled even with them in that demographic. That's bad news for them in certain districts. In certain districts around the country. Think about West Virginia. Think about Missouri. Think about Arkansas. They need that vote in order to even be competitive. And then among white men, you're a white male. Everybody remembers that moment, I'm sure. So they used to have among white men it was 48% to 36% back in 2016. And now, so this is a sample size of 1,351. Now it's a larger sample size, and they're actually losing among them in 2018. So this is among millennial white men. Okay, the sample size here is 6,241 white people, and then there's 97. So it's a larger sample size than before for all these polls, and the Democrats are doing worse. So it's not good news in terms of that demographic. I think you know that it's always good to have more polls. So that this is why I'm a little skeptical. Some of the other things that I think are I really took out of this article, which Tim Pool talked about a lot. I think I don't know if it was Sticks or somebody else who talked about it, but I look more beyond this, beyond just the polling, to some of the rationales. And I noticed a couple of things here. So there was a guy earlier that was talking about the jobs. So Ashley Reed, a white single mother of three in New Hampshire, said a teenage fascination with Democrat Barack Obama led her to support his presidency in 2008. But her politics evolved with her personal life. Reed, now 28, grew more supportive of gun rights, for instance, while married to her now ex-husband, a U.S. Navy technician. She lost faith in social welfare programs she came to believe were misused. She opposed abortion after having children. Reed plans to vote for a Republican for Congress this year. So this is a former Obama voter. And I don't know how many times people need to understand that a lot of the people who voted for Donald Trump and some of the people who may now vote Republican who don't necessarily like Trump, they were Obama Democrats. They felt they loved his personality, and it's over. There is no more Obama to vote for at the moment. Um, she said that as I got older, I felt that I could be my own voice. She said last month in Concord, New Hampshire. So that's interesting wording. Down the road from where Reed lives lies New Hampshire's first congressional district, a hiker's paradise of evergreen thickets and snow-capped lakes, where young white voters make up about a quarter of the electorate, compared to 21% nationally. The district's House seat has changed parties 5 times in 7 election cycles and is up for grabs this year after the Democratic incumbent declined to seek re-election. So they could actually lose this seat. New Hampshire's Democrats have an early edge in voter enthusiasm after a string of victories in races for state legislative seats, said Christopher Galdari, a politics professor at St. Ansem College in Manchester. At a campaign event at the University of New Hampshire in Durham, Mindy Mesmer, one of 8 Democrats running in the primary election, touted her work as an environmental crusader. But students in the crowd also raised many other issues, notably the local economy. So this one says people come to school here and they move away because they can't get jobs, said Acadia Spear of Portsmouth. Spear said she would likely vote for a Democrat, but her peers nationally are increasingly looking for Republicans for economic leadership, according to the Reuters Ipsos polls. So, it looks like she does have fertile ground there in New Hampshire, this Democrat. So this was the one that caught my eye. In Manchester, the biggest city in New Hampshire's first district, tattoo artist Ashley Matthias, 31, said she has not decided how she will vote, but will support anyone who will make her health insurance more affordable. As she drilled an eagle in black ink across a client's shoulder blades, Matthias explained that it is cheaper to pay her for her doctor's visits out of pocket than to buy insurance through the government Obamacare exchange. So she said, "You just hope nothing happens to you." So that's what really caught my eye. And then later, after the bruising loss in the presidential election of 2016, the Democratic Party learned it needed to reach young voters on their turf, including on social media and at college campuses, said Elizabeth Renda, who specializes in reaching young voters for the Democratic National Committee. Instead of having real conversations with them, we settled for TV ads. Renda said, okay, so that's talking about 2016. Earlier this year, the DNC launched its I Will Vote initiative, aimed in part at registering millennials to vote. The party also will run ads via social media and text, and it plans to send buses to college campuses on election day to bring students to the polls. The Democratic National Committee declined to comment on the Reuters poll. Republican National Committee spokeswoman Cassie Smedili said the poll indicates that young voters like what they've seen from the party in power. I don't think that that's what it means. The Republican committee plans to target young voters in part through a pilot program to get out the vote at 6 college campuses. In New Hampshire, Eddie Edwards, one of 2 Republicans running for Congress in the 1st district, said he pitches millennials on ways the government should help college graduates pay off their student loans. He also argues that public secondary schools must better prepare students to find jobs without attending college. So then they go into, a bunch of other, clerical matters related to this. But the bottom line for me, what I noticed about that one person who mentioned Obamacare was that, there were people who they looked at Obama as the hope when they were younger, when they were, let's say, 17 and Obama came to power in 2008 and they loved him. Or they voted for him their first election. They were 19, 18, whatever the age was, and they basically got sticker shock from Obamacare. Those of them that are enrolled in it, it cost them a lot of money under Obama. Now, has it gotten better under Trump? I would say probably not, but Pinochet has gone home, so have a good night. J-Man Truth Seeker is making Bitcoin jokes. I'm a little sore over that. I lost a little money over Bitcoin, but I need, I'm looking for the next big opportunity. Anyway, look, Obamacare was the biggest fucking failure of any domestic policy in U.S. history. It was such a fucking failure that you now need an entire party in Congress to basically act as a fig leaf for it. And those of you that are thinking that I'm exaggerating, there was a story I shared about a week ago, about mandatory enrollment. They wanted, it wasn't enough. It used to be, so it used to be that their incentive for people to join was, oh, if you don't join, we're going to tax you. Let me see here. So this is actually from David Kendall, who, if you don't know, is this the same David Kendall? If it's the same David Kendall, we have a real problem here. Hold on. I didn't know. I found this from The Hill. So if it's the same David Kendall that I know, it's really a problem. Okay, it's not. Bill Clinton used to have a lawyer named David Kendall. In any case, so that what they wanted to do was to institute. It's not like it used to be that they would do, a penalty. Sorry. They were going to do a penalty where, what do they call it? The individual mandate, that if you didn't enroll in the healthcare plan, you get fined basically. In this case, they would automatically enroll you in Obamacare, even if you didn't know, if you were uninsured. So imagine how much confusion could happen from this. And this is what he says: auto enrollment will have 2 main benefits. It can ensure that Americans get access to high quality care without fear of devastating financial losses, and it can help lower premiums for everyone. Access to affordable, high quality care shouldn't be something that we let anyone take for granted. Open enrollment in the exchanges comes once a year. It is far too easy to miss information about enrollment or to put off enrolling because of some more pressing concerns. When someone doesn't have coverage, they may find out they have cancer or face any number of other injuries or diseases. They will probably not be able to afford care, leaving them to choose between bankruptcy or severe health problems. Auto enrollment will also lower health insurance premiums for everyone by getting more healthy people enrolled. When you are healthy, getting coverage is naturally a lower priority than when you are sick. When fewer healthy people enroll in a health plan, the plan has less money available for people who are sick. Finding new ways to get more healthy people to enroll is especially important following the GOP's repeal of the individual mandate penalty, which imposed a fee for not enrolling in coverage. Auto enrollment can help, although Congress also needs to take more immediate steps to stabilize exchanges for 2019. So he doesn't go into those into those steps, and there's a very simple reason for that. But let me just finish it out. Democrats and willing Republicans in Congress can defend and extend the ACA by enacting provisions like auto enrollment. The long-held progressive goal of universal coverage is within our grasp if we continue to build upon the foundation that our current programs provide. So those of you that don't think that I'm going to keep talking about Obamacare, just like with Farrakhan feminism, I'm not done with Obamacare. Until it's dead, it's still in the target sites. What this guy is proposing is he's saying, look, you're a dumbass and you can forget to enroll in insurance because you don't know, you can't, look at the calendar and say it's almost January or whenever it is. I think in November you have to enroll. What the fuck do I know? Maybe I'm one of the idiots he's talking about. Anyway, what he's saying is, okay, so we're going to automatically enroll you during the coming year, and you're going to get billed for that in order to make other people's premiums go down because we can't keep the Affordable Care Act affordable. We couldn't do it by fining you in the past. We would fine you, and most people would say, oh, I'm either going to get screwed in the ass by Aetna or a dick in the ear from Obamacare. I guess my ear, it doesn't hurt as much as in the ass, so I'm going to take the fine from the government. That was their logic back then, and people hated it, and people were paying the fine so they wouldn't have to take the hit from the insurance from the high premiums. So yeah, enrollment was sucky, and people and plans were dropped by the insurance companies because they were like, oh, there ain't enough fucking people to keep this solvent. The premiums are through the fucking roof, and the deductibles are through the roof. So the whole thing was collapsing. Insurance exchanges were collapsing. That's how bad of a failure it was. How many? Sorry, I got distracted by something and dropped off for a while. Did Joy Reid call Pinochet a fat? No, Pinochet had to go to bed. Angel Tibbs. Thank you, Angel Tibbs. Commented on one of my previous videos. I hope Angel Tibbs goes to this channel soon. I just saw that somebody commented. I take. By the way, if you guys comment on one of my threads, or actually on one of my videos, usually I'll read it. Some people, they spam a little. They put a few too many links, and they're like, "Oh, share this, blah blah blah, and whatever." Well, don't you? If you want to really, share information with me, and I think that you want me to really read it, don't put it in the comment section, unless you've told me in the chat or something. You should probably send it to me by. Let me see. Well, you can comment on one of my Steam It posts. How about that? That'll get you some of you people to join Steam It. But if not Steam It, then you can send it. My Minds account. You can comment there. I think you can also message on Minds. So that would be a better way. But anyway, on Obamacare, listen to this, okay? I want this to be very clear. It was a fucking failure when they would fine people for not taking health insurance. So that they were already, their plans were going south back then. Now what this thing would do by automatically enrolling you, listen to how it would work. So the first 90 days of the year, you would have the option to opt out. But in the meantime, if you had forgotten, because you already forgot to enroll for health insurance because you're a dumbass, according to these people, So if you forgot for another month, you would automatically be billed by one of these plans, and they could assign you to the most bullshit fucking plan that there is. So this is not universal health care by any means. This is them enrolling you into private health insurance against your will and placing you there and not telling you, or you know, they probably send you some sort of notice, and then you would have to opt out. So let's say you changed your address, and during that first month of the year you weren't getting your mail, so you would get billed for that 1 month of Obamacare that you didn't use because you didn't know you had it. So imagine it was so difficult for them to roll out Obamacare the first time, what with the healthcare.gov fiasco and whatever. This time, think about it. They're proposing to make it something that you wouldn't even know that you're on it until you got the bill in the mail, or you got whatever this notice was or something. I mean, I guess hypothetically they could let you opt out ahead of time. And if a lot of people opted out, and they got the message, then what are they going to do? Then what does the law solve? It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. They tell you what you want to buy. They tell you that, first of all, if you don't want health insurance, they tell you, hey, you have to buy health insurance. If you want to buy a firearm, they tell you you can't buy a firearm. If you want your kids to live according to their birth gender, they tell you that it's the child's choice what gender that they're going to live by. If you want to, I mean, how many more things do we have to go through? They just want to manage your life. I mean, if you want your kids to grow up speaking English and living in a country that respects its English, the heritage of the British Enlightenment, British Enlightenment thinking, they say, well, you're not being multicultural enough. We have to have bilingual education. It's too much. They can't, when they're trying to manage your life, telling you what to buy, telling you what not to buy. That's what jars people away from your party. And that's why I think that there are some millennials and some people who are younger than millennials who are saying, well, no, we do think that we have the privilege to or not the privilege. I mean, we're privileged to be able to have our own opinions, okay, and therefore we will fulfill our rights as independent human beings and not be dictated to by a party that tells us, oh, yeah, you have to be pro-choice. If you're not, there was just the Alfie Evans thing in Britain. You can't have your child. Yeah, Len McCarthy says that kid Alfie died because, yeah, you read my mind. Yes, we have universal health care here. So, you want to take your kid out of it? No, go fuck yourself. That's their thing. So this is not exactly what they're doing here now with this proposed Obamacare expansion, which Len McCarthy, I think we talked about that last week. It's almost in a certain way, it's more insulting because they're saying, well, we'll automatically enroll you in this program, and then if you forget to opt out, well, we're just going to start sending you bills. It doesn't matter that you're at a new address or whatever, but we're gonna keep billing you, and you're gonna pay it, and then we're gonna ruin your life. And that's about it as far as that. That's why I think that there are more people who are gravitating out of the Democratic Party now. Other people like Tim Pool have mentioned the thing that some people they're drifting further left in the Democratic Party. That's a different issue. And I think that stems from the disappointment that the Democrats have. They've really shat the bed as far as dealing with the progressive left, the people who do believe genuinely in universal health care and all that crap. They've betrayed their mandate on the environment. They've betrayed their mandate as far as oversight over the banking industry. They've betrayed their mandate as far as defense contractors. You can go down the list of different things that the Democrats say that they're looking out for the the consumer or for the citizen on, they've really dropped the ball on every single thing. And if you watch progressive media, as I do, as Lennon McCarthy does, as other people do, it's pretty clear that they're doing very poorly. They're doing very poorly when it comes to a lot of those publics, that the ones that are of progressive values. A lot of the black people on the left, they don't want to, even if they're not buying this whole Kanye going to the Republicans thing, they might, not want to vote for the Democrats for other reasons. It's they're really, they've run aground. Their ship has run aground. The Democrats. They're basically capsizing, like Hank Johnson's alternate version of Guam. That's the state of the Democratic Party at the moment. So, and Lennon McCarthy, maybe we could, do a cartoon about that next week. I want to help. I want to help put together one of those cartoons. It looks like fun. One last thing about Nicaragua before we close, because I have been streaming for a little longer than I wanted to today. So this is from the conversation from today. The conversation is, I think, British, and no, it is American. But it says, in recent days, protests against Social Security reform have prompted a violent crackdown in Nicaragua. At least 42 people have been killed, but the final figure will likely be much higher. If the government has refused to release the bodies of some of the dead until families sign a disclaimer which states that the state were not responsible. This is a level of state violence Nicaragua hasn't seen that since the Somoza dictatorship was overthrown in 1979. I think that's a false statement there, because there was a war right after that. But I mean, let's let that one slide. That's a pretty big oversight, though. Yeah, there was a war after that between the Sandinistas and their opponents. The crisis was sparked by proposed changes to the Nicaraguan Institute of Social Security, or INSS, requested by the International Monetary Fund, which would entail a rise in Social Security contributions and a reduction in pensions. This was a guaranteed political flashpoint. Government officials have been accused of siphoning off INSS funds for years, and the previous, so let's see that link, siphoning it off. So it says here 10 years of dark business by the INSS. So there was a there was an official report that talked a lot about corruption between 1990 and 2006, but it it neglects to talk about 2007 to 2017, which is under the present president. So yeah, they're talking a lot. I mean, I'll have to look at this later. So we'll be revisiting this. By the way, this is a recurring theme from now on. It's going to be Venezuela. It's going to be Nicaragua. It's going to be probably Bolivia in the future. Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador. Those are countries that were under large social democratic or democratic socialist governments of the Chavez variety, and the bill's coming due, and they don't know how to pay it. So we're going to be talking about all of them. And previous protests at INSS changes in 2013 had triggered what was until this week one of the government's harshest responses to peaceful protests. The INSS reforms were announced on April 18th, when students were already in the streets protesting the government's mismanagement of an ecological crisis, and this contributed to the size of the protests. But it's the violence of the government's crackdown, rather than the reforms themselves, that has transformed the balance of power, and the underlying tensions fueling that violence have been building for more than a decade. So it says Nicaragua. So then it goes through the whole story, and he came to power in 1979. There's a different video where I explain this. So then, since 2008, election observers have reported irregularities in every local and national election. The most recent election was a foregone conclusion because the leader of the main opposition party was removed from office by Nicaragua's Supreme Court less than 5 months before the vote. The violence has prompted open opposition from the institutions that Daniel Ortega, who is the dictator, or he's democratically elected. So Daniel Ortega, the president of Venezuela. Let me fix that. relies on. Senior members of the Catholic Church came out in support of the students, and Managua's cathedral was used as a center to provide food to protesters during the worst of the violence. Two former chiefs of the army, including the president's own brother, have expressed concern. So that's Humberto Ortega, who is he's retired, and he was the president's right-hand man during the 80s. They have expressed concern while the FSLN's former allies in the private sector participated in a massive demonstration in Managua on April 23rd. The history of the 1979 revolution still shapes political discourse in Nicaragua, so parallels with the violence of the Somoza era have provoked particular revulsion. The symbolism is potent. Scores of demonstrators were held and allegedly beaten at El Chipote, the prison where Ortega himself was held and tortured by the Somoza regime between 1967 and 1974. So that's an interesting. The same thing happened in Iran. In Iran, there's the famous Evin prison, which was used to torture people under the Shah until 1979. Then the mullahs, the ayatollahs, took over. Where do they torture people? Evin prison. It's the same thing, you know. So what are you going to do? Old habits die hard, even with different people. Ortega may be saved by the fact that there is no viable candidate to replace him. He and his family have dominated the FSLN for many years, and no opposition party can as yet claim a substantial electoral base. But as the government continues its crackdown on dissent, hospital workers and other government employees were reportedly fired for participating in the April 23rd protests. Opposition continues to build. Human rights organizations have demanded an independent truth commission to investigate the violence of the past week. And given the outrage felt by most Nicaraguans right now, it's difficult to see how Ortega can stay in power without acceding. Now, look, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to remain neutral when, obviously I have a bias against Daniel Ortega, against the Sandinistas in this case, because I just philosophically disagree with the welfare state. Now, a lot of people, they get their hopes up when these popular revolutions come about, but the honest to God's truth is, many cases these things fail, and a lot of people die, and you can't start to expect every single place where people are demanding freedom, you can't expect it to break out like a case of the hives, but you can at least start to trace really where it all goes wrong. And the problem is, and I think I explained it in a previous video, or I did do a blog about it on Steemit. So the that's going to start to annoy people, but yeah, I do promote Steemit. By the way, those of you that have not voted yet, we still have the straw poll. I know some people may have joined late. So the straw poll certainly, it's the first link in the description. Which alt tech platform are you most willing to? I almost said platform. That would have been like Kim Jong Il. Are you most willing to give a shot? So you have Minds.com, BitChute, GAB.AI, Steemit, DTube, and other. So please, let's refresh it. Let's see if anybody voted again. No, I see you guys are disaffected voters. My apologies. So yeah, go on there, vote, and let me know. I know there's like a 3-second delay. I just wanted to do that. Len McCarthy says that's because actual liberals have nothing to do with the Democrat Party, and neolibs some move farther left. I don't think that what's a liberal. Dave Rubin argues about what a liberal is. Liberalism doesn't necessarily mean socialism, but progressivism has been kind of tied to that. And I was watching a chat earlier in Spanish from this this Chilean think tank in this libertarian think tank in Chile called the Fundación del Progreso. And interestingly, I mean, they picked the name Foundation for Progress, but they're not a progressive organization. They're more of a libertarian, pro-business, Pinochet style. He's gone, but I think he went to bed or something. But they're of that philosophy, belief in freer markets, less government intervention, also less censorship, so not exactly Pinochet, but the term of progress has become linked to the left. But unfortunately, if left wingers would focus on events around the world the same way that they focus on specifically Israel and Palestine like a laser, and they won't let go of it, they would realize that they actually support injustice that often contradicts their own free-thinking values. Now Nicaragua is a case in point. Daniel Ortega, yes, he's a far left socialist, but in his second term, he also embraced a kind of populist Catholicism. So he also became a huge anti-abortion crusader. I think it's almost impossible to get an abortion in Nicaragua. So some people would say, yeah, maybe he's a good person. Some people who are so-called social conservatives. For example, Robert Mugabe was a notorious homophobe. He hated gay people. Okay, so some of us also hate gay people. I personally don't care. I think you should be able to make fun of anybody you want. That's where I think the most important thing should be you should be able to say whatever you want. But I think like openly hating them and putting them in prison is a bit of it's a bit of an overreach. It does impede on people's freedom. Aren't Ortega and Progresso spaghetti sauces or something? Ortega is the tacos. Ortega is you buy them in the store. It's those tacos. They're not that good, but they're salvageable. I've used them before. Thanks for bringing that up. I am a little hungry, and I didn't go shopping. I think I'm gonna eat some hamburgers or something. Thanks for making me hungry, McCarthy. So look, before we break today, I do want to reiterate the issues in Latin America have to be examined. I do. I grant a certain level of respect for people who criticize American policy in the Middle East, but we don't focus on Asia. We don't focus on our relationship with Europe and there's now this obsession with Russia, so we ignore China. But Latin America, for me, that's where all of the real problems are happening. That's where you can really you throw away the whole religious fanaticism issue. That's with Islam. So you have this small Catholic issue that's happening with Ortega, but that's kind of an isolated case. You throw away a lot of these other social ideological issues that are inherent to other parts of the world, like the Middle East, and you see in Latin America more of the results of social welfare systems, and there's other countries where the absence of social welfare systems seem to have caused problems. Guatemala. So you can be fair. You can criticize both societies that are overly socialistic, and Honduras also, by the way, is not in good shape. And you can criticize those countries that are a little too they don't guarantee any sorts of rights or distribution of wealth to its citizens. I personally think that when you redistribute wealth, you create more abuses. And under Ortega, it's not just the fact that he's outlawed abortion, which I'm personally not a fan of abortion, but he's concentrated more power in the executive branch. And for those of us that do believe in a free society, I would hope that Donald Trump, even where I do agree with him, I would hope he devolves more power to the local governments, more power to the state governments, maybe some more power to Congress. He does not declare wars in the same way, or he doesn't engage in wars without getting congressional approval. That's where I think we need to improve our country. And the penalty, the penalty that the nation suffers can be observed in Latin America when you see these executive officers, like Ortega, like Maduro in Venezuela. You could see the same elements in I think Honduras with who's their guy? I forgot. Hernandez. Those people Yeah, they all have exemplified the reason that we believe in a separation of powers. We believe that there should be, uh, a division of labor between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and we're seeing the results of this executive overreach with what's happening in the NSA, with what's happening in the FBI, and in Latin America, that's in many countries that's accepted. They say, oh yeah, that guy he got dragged away, but yesterday he got dragged away. But you might find him in the garden later as fertilizer or something. That's the way they did it in a lot of those countries back then, in especially in Paraguay, and these are also right wing dictatorships. So it's on both sides. That's why if you believe in democracy, you believe in the separation of powers. So that's it for tonight. I know there was a lot of. I mean, the first hour I think was top heavy on Iran. Then there was a lot of stuff about obviously you can still vote in that stupid poll I made. And then there was Reuters poll about the millennials and Diamond and Silk. And we also talked a little about Obamacare and Nicaragua. So thank you. I hope you join me again. Subscribe, share, like. Please see me on Steemit and on other social media. And have a great night.